Hey, what's up guys? It's Joe from GadgetryTech.com, and today I'm driving the 2016 Lexus LX 570. 570 is the number that stands for the displacement of this car, or truck. It's a 5.7 liter V8 making over 400 pounds-feet of torque, which is awesome. It needs it because this car weighs 6,000 pounds. Full-time four-wheel drive, 21-inch wheels. It rides high, and it rides pretty tough. You can tell it's got a lot of weight behind it, and when you're even just cruising around it, 5 miles an hour, you can feel the mass and dominance this thing has on the road. It really is a rolling assault vehicle. It's an urban assault vehicle because you feel like you're in good control on the streets, but if something happens and you need to go off the road, this thing can do that. It has adjustable ride height with an airbag suspension, so I can hit high and it'll lift the vehicle up for me and give me an extra few inches of ground clearance, as well as crawl mode, and I can change everything to give this vehicle more abilities in an off-road environment, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's talk about driving dynamics. This is a 6,000 pound SUV, okay? It's not going to drive like the Lexus RCF or GSF I drove before. With that being said, I'm currently in comfort mode because I'm recording this and I want to not be bounced around anywhere and have a nice smooth ride. There are, just like the F-Sport models, this car has adjustable suspension stiffness and steering feel and all that as well. I have economy, comfort, normal, customize, Sport S, and Sport S Plus. Now I usually leave this in comfort. I don't need the eco mode because, let's face it, it's a 5.7 liter engine that makes over 400 pounds-feet of torque. It's not going to get good gas mileage, especially when the fact that this thing weighs 6,000 pounds. So I leave it in comfort. I love it in comfort. It drives excellent. And even with that being said, with all that weight and height, because this is such a big SUV, the body roll is surprisingly minimal considering how soft the ride is. So I think that it shows how well engineered the suspension is. Now, if I put it in Sport S Plus, I am not sure the full intent behind it. I guess if it's a smooth road that's got some twisties to it, you would do that. It gets incredibly stiff. And to showcase that, I'm going to put it in Sport S Plus now. It'll take a second to firm up, but you're going to notice I'm going to start bouncing around a lot more, and you can even hear it in my voice a little bit. It's very noticeable. In fact, more noticeable than any other Lexus I've driven before when you transition from a comfortable driving mode to something a little bit more oriented towards driving dynamics and road feel. So you even feel the little undulations in the road just from normal driving. So I'm going to turn it back off so I have a nice easier time talking to you. So as expected, not the best fuel economy. This thing's rated for 13 city, I believe 18 highway. However, I'm driving in a lot of mountainous terrain right now. There's lots of hills, stops and goes. It does not favor heavy vehicles with regards to fuel economy. With that being said, I am currently at 13.1 miles per gallon average, and I haven't been driving it hard. I haven't been driving like Miss Daisy either, so at the same time, you could probably get, mid-14s on normal driving with hills. On the highway, 15 to 17 is pretty acceptable. I'd imagine you'd get that without much of a problem. There's a cool little button on the bottom left of the dash, and it looks like, it looks like a person leaning forward, and there's a window symbol behind them. So I'm not sure why that logo looks the way it does. However, it is an easy accessibility button. And what that means is if I am done driving for the day, it's at a normal ride height, I get home and I park and I turn the vehicle off. As long as the door is shut when I turn it off, it'll lower itself several inches to make it easier to get in and out of the car. Now I'm six feet tall, and even on the high setting especially, even with my height, it can be a little difficult getting in and out of a vehicle this large. That's what the running boards are there for. However, when it drops all the way down, I can hop in and out without much of a problem at all. So that little feature is kind of nice. It also gives you varying height levels based off the terrain. So if it's noticing that you're constantly dealing with very different, dips and rises in the road, things are going up and down, it's bumpy, it'll actually boost up the height a little bit. And at lower speeds, if everything's incredibly smooth and slow, it's going to help lower itself back down. So it's dynamic in a sense that it's designed to give you the best ride comfort and height without risking anything in the vehicle. So going into the interior dimensions, it's extremely roomy. I have more headroom than most vehicles I've driven. and more width. The big thing with this vehicle is how wide it is, and it's several. I drive a new Highlander. That's our family vehicle, and it's a big car. I have ridiculous amounts of legroom in there. This one is comparable for legroom. In fact, they're within an inch or two of each other from the way it feels. However, the difference on a vehicle of this size is how much space you have in between the passengers that are in the same row as you. So when I rest my arm, if I'm leaning over and I'm tired or I'm doing a road trip, I'm not worrying about bumping elbows with the person that's next to me. Rear seat passengers are also treated to a much higher end experience as far as luxury comforts go. In this particular model, this one's $96,000, the back seats recline quite a bit to a point where you can easily take a nap. The center armrest folds down, and that gives you individually controlled climate control zones for the left and right side of the vehicle. So if you're on the passenger side and you want it to be 72, you can set it for that. Driver's side, rear seat, can set it to 65. Now the only thing you can't control is the fan speed. You all share the same fan speed, but it is kind of cool to separate the temperature zones. Now in addition to the separate temperature zones, this car also has the rear seat entertainment system. So there are two large screens one behind each seat, and that gives the rear passengers access to whatever the media controls are up front. So the satellite radio, FM radio, CD, DVD, not Blu-ray, but DVD, as well as there is an HDMI input at the bottom of the center console here with wired headphone jacks. If you want to use a corded headphone, there are also wireless headphones that come standard with this, and you can find those in the door of each of the rear seats. Now, if this isn't a slouch, it has 406 foot-pounds of torque, so naturally it has some get up and go. Full-time four-wheel drive, 5.7 liter V8. It moves. Let's go. You can hear that rasp. So that's 60. So it's not going to skyrocket to 60 miles an hour. This isn't a Porsche or a BMW or a Mercedes AMG, BMW M Series. It's not designed for that. It's not a performance vehicle. It's a utility vehicle. So it has more than enough power to move. However, you can expect mid 7-second 0 to 60 times. Now, braking is done by massive rotors up front. It has 13.5-inch rotors, and those are being clamped down by 4-piston calipers. Now, 4-piston calipers are usually found on performance vehicles. They need that because this car weighs so much. You want something that has good heat dissipation, which those do. In addition to that, with all that power and four-wheel drive, this can tow up to 7,000 pounds. So you don't have to upgrade the braking system to support a large cargo or towing capacity that it has in the back. All right, to sum it up, the best word I could give to a truck like this is refined, because you expect something that weighs 6,000 pounds riding on giant wheels in a big 5.7 liter V8 to just be all noise and commotion and shrewdness. And Lexus made it a Lexus. It's incredibly smooth and quiet, very easy to drive. Everything is laid out intuitively for me, especially if you're familiar with other Lexus vehicles. They build off of that. This is the most complex vehicle I've ever driven from Lexus. I had to actually consult the manual to understand what some of the buttons did. But with that being said, I don't have to fiddle with that all the time. Once I've set everything to the way I like it and I understand where the basic controls are, it's just a no-fuss ride. If I need to tow something, I can. And ultimately, I'm really happy with the way it drives. It's incredibly quiet. It could use it to be, better on fuel economy. But overall, I think they did a great job, again. And I think that, for $96,000, it's not... When you get into those price ranges, there's not a lot of direct competitors in anything, because there's so many different ways and philosophies companies have behind doing something, much differently than a $20,000 subcompact car, where it's all about how many features can I cram in for 20 grand, how good on gas can I make it, how safe can I make it. This has a lot of very unique features with the automatic air ride suspension, the rear reclining seats that have motors to help slide them back and forth for you. The four-wheel control system on this for the transmission is incredible, with the crawl mode and the locking differential. So this thing can do everything. It's a Lexus version of a Hummer or a Land Cruiser. So you have all the capabilities off-road, but I've never driven a vehicle that can do as much as it can off-road, drive as well as it does on the road. So that's something to consider. So if you're really in the market for a vehicle like this and you have you know, $95,000, $100,000 to spend, I don't think you're going to find a part that it's weak at. It might not have an extreme in a certain situation like horsepower or raw performance, but I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And honestly, it's a very relaxing, quiet ride to use every day. And I'm very happy with it. So I think they did an incredible job with this vehicle. And yeah, I can't think of much to suggest to improve on it. You just kind of have to drive it and really experience it for yourself. So that about wraps it up, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this review. Please shoot me feedback below. I'm always looking to improve on these videos. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.